Hey Kia, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing great. I don't know if the listeners can see, but I'm looking at the most amazing hair that Kia is sporting here, and I need hair like that. I need hair. I
Thank
I just
you.
need to keep growing mine out.
Yes.
Is that your natural hair?
No, it's not. It's a wig.
Yeah, yeah. It looks amazing though.
I
It's
like to change
perfect.
my hair all the time, so I wear wigs a lot.
I love it,
I get
and
bored.
I love to peruse your Instagram account because you've got all your looks on there.
Yeah. I never
All
look the
right, so
same.
you never look the same, which is what makes it look interesting. For the listeners who don't know you, Kia, you're a Philly hairdresser, editorial stylist, educator, and texture specialist, and you're a texture versus race collab coach. That reminds me of another guest that I had on the podcast, the founder of Texture versus Race, Kia Neal. That was
Yeah.
probably 2 years ago or so, and
hmm
that was
hmm
super cool. So, how did you get involved with Kia and Texture versus Race?
Well, I discovered Kia back in 2020 during the unrest, uproar,
Yeah.
insane murder of George Floyd. And
Hmm.
she went live with Mary from Behind the Chair. I didn't know who Kia was prior to, but I said, I need to know who this woman is after I watched that live. So I watched the live. I was intrigued with her. I thought she was fantastic. She was speaking everything that was on everybody's mind at that time. Um, so I followed her, and I guess a year or two later, she reached out to me to connect with me to be a collab coach on her team.
Super
And I
cool.
was like, oh my God, of course, I would love to. I love everything that Texture versus Race stands for, everything they're doing, the entire movement. So I was, especially being as though I work behind the scenes a lot at like Fashion Week and stuff, I saw a need.
Mm,
So yeah, I was excited.
that's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to get into that a little bit more. But before we do that, we want to know more about your background. Where are you from? How did you get into this business?
Well, I'm from Philly, Philadelphia, PA, for those who don't know what Philly is. Because I'm sure this is nationwide and there's somebody in a little teeny town and they're like, where's Philly? Anyway.
Maybe. Yeah, we have an international audience actually.
Oh,
So there might be somebody in maybe Perth, Australia, a
okay.
hairdresser in Perth, or maybe somebody in like Liverpool, England, who's like, Philly, what?
Yeah, I love that. I love that for us. Okay. Um, so I grew up in Philly. Um, I got interested in hair probably the first time when I was around 9 years old. Um, my neighbor, who was maybe 11 at the time, she was braiding all the little kids in the neighborhood's hair. And I didn't know how to braid, but I was fascinated watching her. And one day I just said, Regina, can you teach me how to braid? I need to know. Like, can you show me? And she's like, I'll teach you. So she taught me how to braid. I'm all excited. I'm like, oh my God, this is fabulous. So I started practicing on my baby dolls and I got good. And then I decided, let me see if I can style some hair. Now, this was some years later. I might have been maybe 11 or 12 by this time. So, because I used to like curl my own hair
Okay.
and style my own hair. So I started doing like my neighbors, my friends, my family, my mom.
Mhm.
And in my head, I'm like, yeah, this looks good. I probably should do something like this for a living. But I'm like 12 years old. I don't know
Yeah.
that I can actually become a stylist and make money. So fast forward to now, I'm about 14. I put a relaxer in my hair. I told you I thought I was a hairstylist. I put this relaxer in my hair and I over processed my hair terribly. My mom was so mad at me. She's like, why didn't you just go to the your hairdresser?
Mhm.
But I thought I could do it myself. So my mom had to take me to the hairdresser to fix all the mistakes
Oh
that I
yeah.
made, which I can't. I still every time I think about that, I'm like, what were you thinking about? So anyway, so my hairstylist, he got on me. He had to cut half my hair off. I
Oh
was
no.
traumatized. I thought my hair never would grow back, and it did grow back. He treated it. He cut it and it grew back. That was fascinating to me because it grew pretty fast. I would say within 9 months, my hair pretty much looked amazing again. So, that kind of intrigued me. And then I decided I wanted to get a short haircut. Now I think I'm actually about to go to college because
Okay.
I decided to go to college. That's another whole story. I felt like I was not forced, but because my entire family is big on education, it was one of those things you just knew you were going to college. When I started high
Yep.
school, I knew college was going to be the next step. But in the back of my head, I didn't really want to go to college, but I was too afraid to say anything.
Right.
So I go to college. I studied. I don't even remember what I studied. That's how interested I was.
That's how big of an impact it had on
It
you.
had zero, but I had fun. I partied. But what I did was I set up shop in my dorm, and I was doing my friend's hair on campus
There you go.
and making look. Because my dad would say, "Do you need money?" And I was like, "I'm fine." He's like, "How are you making money?" I'm like, "I did hair." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "I did hair in my dorm. I did like all the girls on my floor at my dorm. I'm just hooking everybody's hair up."
That's amazing.
So I did 2 years in college. I was bored out of my mind. But like I said, I did have a great time. That was not for me. It just was not for me. And I came home after my second year. I think I was a sophomore. And I said, I have to have this conversation with my parents. I really wanted to go to cosmetology school. And I sat them down. I was so nervous because, like I said, everybody's big on education in my family. So my parents were like, "Oh, you want to go to cosmetology school? Why didn't you say that before?" And I'm thinking,
Oh,
you mean to tell me I put myself through all of this? And you were just like, "Sure, why not?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." So my parents were like, "Find
so
a
there
school."
goes 2 years.
Yes, 2 years of my life I could never get back.
Yep.
So they were like, "Find a school, they'll pay for it." But my hairstylist at the time was a young, stylish, fashionable. I used to go to the salon in Philly back in the day. That was like the It salon. All the like, chic people went to the salon, and she was phenomenal. My hairstylist was, I'm 16. He's like in his 40s. So, he's like a middle-aged man to me. So
Right.
he's like, I'm like, "You're kind of old," but we know that's not old. We know he's like maybe 42, 43. That's not
Yeah.
old. But when I'm
No, that's
16,
young. That's like a baby.
it's a baby. It's a baby now. But at 16, I thought he was old and over the hill.
Of course. 16-year-olds look at me and they think I'm old.
They automatically think we're like 10 years older than we are.
100%. And like, they don't even know how old. They just know we're old.
Right, exactly. So I wanted to go to the stylist next to him, who in my eyes was young, hip, fly, chic. She was everything I wanted to be. And he was like, "We're going over there and get her to do your hair." I'm like, "Fine, I'll go." So she does my hair. She's my hairstylist now. And I had shared with her I wanted to go to cosmetology school. So she was like, "I think you should go. I think it's a great idea. You need to talk to your parents." So she was kind of in my ear a lot about just talk to him, just talk to him. She was in her early 20s. She might have been like, I would say like 24. So I'm like, okay, great. So my parents approved. I was so excited. They were like my biggest cheerleaders. So I go to cosmetology school. I get to cosmetology school. I am in heaven. I am right where I need to be. I was so excited. I said, "I can't believe I wasted all that time over there not doing." I was on academic probation in college. I was like, "What? You are wasting all your time."
Yep.
But then I go to cosmetology school and I'm getting straight A's. So go figure.
Awesome.
So I graduated from cosmetology school. I worked in the salon as an assistant. That was a great experience. I had a great time being an assistant. I think I was an assistant maybe like 2 years, but I had
Is
an
this
amazing time.
at the same salon that you were going to?
No, this was at a different salon. This was at, actually this salon was new. But what I loved about my first experience in a salon, it was a busy salon, might have been 8 to 10 stylists that I was training under, and it was a very diverse salon.
Hmm.
And I loved that because,
Hmm.
like, literally, we had men, women, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, all clients.
Hmm.
So for that to be my first experience, I thought that was wonderful.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and were the clients segregated to the hairstylists who looked like them, or what you know?
yeah,
Could
they
could the
were.
black hairdresser work on the white client? And
But
because I this is something that's been happening in our industry for so long, right? Is that
yeah,
we're in silos.
yeah, yeah. I would say no, no, they weren't. They were white stylists going to black. They were white clients going to black stylists,
Oh,
black clients
nice.
going to white stylists. Yeah, that's
So
why I say
everybody
my
knew how
first.
to do everything.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I. That was like every time I think about that salon and the owner of the salon, that was her dream to have a
Mm.
salon like that. And this was in the early '90s. Yeah,
Wow.
this was in the early '90s. So that was a cool place. That was the first time I had ever seen Jewish women with tightly coiled hair, and they were getting relaxers.
Mm.
And I had never seen that. I was like, wow, they're getting the same thing I was getting. I was getting a
Mm.
relaxer.
Mhm.
So that was wonderful. And then fast forward, I started working in salons throughout the city. And then I worked at a salon. Everything started kicking off around 2010 as far as my editorial career, because
Mhm.
I worked at a salon where the owner, her staff, the stylist at her salon did a lot of like editorials and shoots and things of that nature. And I had never done it, but I didn't really know that's what I wanted to do per se. But if you go back to when I was in high school, when I was doing playing in people's hair, basically, and I would cut out pictures out of a magazine and I would hang them on my wall in my room, and I would plaster them all over my wall. And these were like a lot of ad campaigns in like Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, and I would put those on my wall. And these images were like super amazing to me. They were glamorous, they were fashionable. I grew up around a lot of glamorous women. My mom was very glamorous. My aunties, they were all glamorous. So I was very attracted to glamour at a very young age. Like my idols were like Donna Summer, Diana
Mm.
Ross, Chaka Khan. You probably can see that influence in me.
Of course.
But those were like my early influences. So now I'm working in a salon, and she's like, okay, we're going to set up a photo shoot. It was me and another young lady that had just started working there. And I'm like, so excited because I'd done maybe one shoot earlier in my career, but I don't even count that. But this shoot that we did, I was so excited. I couldn't even think straight. So I got a model who was actually a professional model. She was one of my clients. Just so happened one of my clients is a professional model who works in New York.
That works.
Exactly. So I asked her to be my model. She comes back. I was so excited. I made wigs for the shoot. And because I wanted to do color, but I didn't want to color her hair. And because she's a model, she can't have all these different colors in her hair. So I had to do wigs. So I did the shoot, and the shoot was just so good. It was so good. Um, but I think where I was working at the time, I think my coworkers didn't believe that I could do that. They were kind of like, she's never been published. She's not
Mm.
one of us. You know that you can't sit with us
Okay.
type of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that kind of vibe. And then when I went on set and killed it, they were kind of like, oh, maybe she is kind of good.
Well, hold on. Were they editorial stylists?
No, they weren't.
Why?
They weren't
Okay.
editorial stylists.
So that all that was probably coming from their insecurity that they
Yeah,
just wanted to make themselves feel like they're a higher status than you were. And then here you are and you go crush it in your first photo shoot. Okay. All right. So where did you go from there?
so from there, I got the pictures back. I was like, I need to do this. like, I need more. What do I do next? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a baby in this. I don't know. I'm like, I need to do more of this. This is the feeling that I've been missing because
Yeah.
I love hair. I love doing hair. I love the artistry. I love my clients. I love meeting amazing people. But I knew that that photo shoot life was for me.
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, I just want to point out that if I'm doing the math right, you'd put in a lot of time. You'd put your time in behind the chair,
yeah,
right?
I was behind a chair for like 20 years before I became an
Right.
editorial stylist.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just became one. You put your time in. You were behind the chair a lot. You probably had lots of different clients. You know, if I am learning anything from your Instagram, doing a lot of different textures. And so by the time you became an editorial stylist, you were really well seasoned.
Yes, super seasoned, but not seasoned in the editorial world,
Sure.
which is
Well, there are certain aspects, yes, that you were not seasoned and you had to learn.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how'd you learn that? How'd you learn all of the little nuances of the editorial world?
So I started doing a lot of research, and I was not on social media at the time, and this was before Instagram. Like,
Okay.
Facebook was like the first big social media site. And where I worked at the time, she used to do a lot of promotion for the salon on social media, on Facebook. And I didn't have a Facebook page. And I had a cousin at the time who used to always tell me, you need to get Facebook. You need to get Facebook. And I'm like, for what? Isn't that where people stalk people from high school and like a bunch of weirdos? I was
Yeah.
not on social media, so this is what I'm thinking. And
Right.
I'm like, everybody on there is weird. I have no need to be on. She's like, no, you promote your business. You should do it. It's amazing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, whatever. So the owner of the salon, she's like, you do need to get a Facebook because I do a lot of promotions. I tag a lot of you guys, the stylists. So you need to get one. I'm like, okay. So I got a Facebook. Best decision I ever made. Thank God thank God. I say thank God for my cousin all the time because she was the one that talked me into it. So I got a Facebook and now I'm able to reach out to other artists, photographers, makeup artists. I had done a lot of research on editorial work, the industry, all that kind of stuff. And I started connecting. I knew a photographer in my town at the time who was an amazing photographer. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, so I want to do a photo shoot. You want to do one with me? He's like, okay. So we set up a test shoot. What's called a test shoot. And what a test shoot is basically when you gather a team, which would be the photographer, hairstylist, makeup artist, wardrobe stylist, and model. And you collab together for a project, create a mood board, and it's a test because no one's getting paid because everybody's going to benefit from the images. So that's why they call it a test. And a test shoot can be anything. It could be beauty, it could be editorial beauty, it could be fashion. So I started testing, and I did like my first, second, third test shoot. I became like addicted to like shooting, and I knew, okay, I need to build a portfolio because I didn't have one. So how am I going to do this? Because I was working full time in the salon. I'm like, it's only but so many days a week. So my photographer friend was like, let's shoot at night. I'm like, okay, say less. So we started shooting after I would leave the salon, which would be about 8 o'clock at night. So we would set up and do our shoot. And I started developing an eye. Now, I honestly think editorial was very natural for me because I really understood it. And I guess it was because I had been studying fashion since high school. I just didn't know what to do with it because that's the one thing cosmetology school is lacking. They don't teach you, all they prepare you for is state board.
Yeah.
They don't tell you, there's so many different facets of the industry that you can go in. They don't teach you the business side of it. It's so much missing. So I had no idea.
Yeah.
Which
I know.
crazy.
It's so frustrating that that's the case. I mean, there's cosmetology schools that you pay a lot more money for, and they'll get into more of that kind of stuff. But most cosmetology schools don't do that.
No,
But
and
so
this was years ago too.
yeah,
So I think times have changed.
yeah, and I mean, a lot of cosmetology schools don't teach taste,
No.
right? I mean, when you talk about fashion, really what you're talking about is taste, and having taste in the aesthetic of what things look better than other things, and how do you get to those things that look good. And that's really this business that we're in is a lot of that. But a lot of times you don't learn this. Some people have it innately, and some people don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so you were interested in this at a very young age, and so you started going through this process of doing these tests, where you've got a bunch of professionals together, but nobody's getting paid, because the end result is you get these amazing pictures that go in your portfolio, and then you can take this amazing portfolio and you can go out there to the companies that are big enough to actually pay you.
Yes.
So is that what you did?
Well, that's not quite how it happened. I would say, so go back. I'm going to go back to high school for 1 second. When I would cut out the magazine pictures and hang them on my wall, I knew that was something I was very attracted to. I didn't make the connection that was somebody's job.
Sure.
Like that somebody actually got paid, the photographer, the wardrobe stylist, the hairstylist. Yeah. Like I just said, oh, I don't know. It's like, it's in a magazine. How it got in that magazine, I had no idea. But once I started doing these test shoots, the photographers that I was working with, they started submitting some of the work to smaller magazines. Now, not like Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, those magazines, but a lot of magazines take submissions from teams. Mm-hmm. And you can submit, and if they love the work, they'll give you a spread in the magazine, and it's free. So it's one way for you to get published, one way for your work to get out there. So a lot of the photographers I started working with, they started doing that. And that's when I was like, okay, this can be something. This can actually turn into a career. And because of my love of fashion, I always wanted to do runway, which is like my baby. But again, I had no idea at a young age that was even a job, that you could actually get paid to do hair for runway. So I started working with, I actually reached out to one of my mentors who was a photographer, because I knew she knew a lot of hairstylists. And she connected me with a hairstylist that was leading shows in New York. And he invited me to be on his team. So he was like the very first team that I actually worked on in, that was in like 2011. Mm-hmm. So now a lot of people who do editorial work do also runway and vice versa. So I was like, I'm at home. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was cool.
And that was your first paying job?
No, I didn't even get paid for that.
Oh,
I wasn't.
You didn't even get paid for that?
No, I didn't get paid for that. Now, Fashion Week, there are teams, like, I guess in the beginning of, no, I don't even want to say that, because it really depends on the team you're on, because there are teams that pay and pay well.
Okay.
So, but it depends on the team you're on. Okay. But you can be on a team where it's a non-paid job. And basically, it's an opportunity for you to learn the game, network, make connections, things like that. I do know, like, I've had stylists that I know that I recommend them for a team that I know is paid. And that might be, it's not their first runway show, but it's their first New York Fashion Week. So it really depends on the team that you're working on, because some are paid and they pay well, and some aren't paid at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. So I understand and by the way, I've heard this story before where you put a lot of effort into it. It takes a lot of effort to put together your portfolio, and then you try really hard to get a paid gig, and you get some gigs, but they don't pay. And then it's so glamorous to the outside world, right? To all of our listeners, so glamorous, but it's a lot of time and a lot of work to get to the point where you can actually make enough money to support yourself, right?
Yes.
So when did you start getting paid?
I would say the first year. Well, I don't want to say that. My first good check,
Yeah.
because I would do
Like enough to make a
right,
difference.
a check, a real check,
Yeah.
not like a couple dollars.
All
I
right.
would say it was probably 2 years into it.
Wow. 2 years. So
Yeah.
two years full time, or 2 years working in the salon half the time and editorial half the time?
2 years split time, half and
Split
half.
time.
Yeah. I would
Are
say
you in?
like I would say like in the beginning, I was doing a lot of unpaid work to get my name out there.
Yeah.
But then I would get booked for like small jobs, small paying jobs, not what I consider a real check, where you can say, "Oh, I can make this amount of money."
Right.
I had no idea. That
Right.
came maybe 2 years later.
Got it. Okay, so this is super fascinating, and I want to continue the conversation, but I want to do it in a second episode. Would you mind coming back, and we can continue going, because I want to get a little bit more into what it means to be an editorial stylist. I want to give the listeners an idea of, should they try to be an editorial hairstylist.
Okay.
And I want to hear more about your behind the. Are you still behind the chair now?
I am.
Yeah. So I want to talk more about that. Would you mind coming back on?
Yeah, I would love to.